joining me today. I thought we'd take a moment, since we're about to embark on this strength training journey together, to talk about some of the equipment that you're going to see during these practices that we will do together. None of it's super expensive. None of it's anything that you need to dash out and buy right away. Through most of our practices, I'll be offering modifications to use body weight or different types of equipment that you may already have around your house. These are just things that you might want to purchase along the way as you start to progress in your journey and start to do more things with them. The first one is something that's really simple, really inexpensive, and really easy to carry around and store with you. These are resistance bands. There's a couple of different types of resistance bands. We will probably be using the kinds with the handles that you may have seen before somewhere down the line, but for right now, these little endless loop bands are going to serve so many purposes in this strength training journey. I've got three here, three different colors. The colors represent the different resistance strength. Depending on the brand that you purchase, your colors are going to be different, so each one will probably tell you what it is. These are actually power systems, and they don't say what resistance level they are on the band, but you can tell pretty easy just by pulling them apart. So there's lots of things that we can do with these. These are really useful. Again, you don't have to go out and purchase them, but if you were going to choose one thing, it would be this. Second, hand weights or dumbbells. These are 5 pounds. I don't recommend doing anything really more than that at this point unless you have already been strength training for a while. The most common question I get asked by people wanting to start strength training is how much weight they should be lifting. And so what I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to repeatedly tell you throughout our practices, is it's more about the intention and your form and your breath than it is in how much weight that you're lifting. So just like in yoga, we're going to put intention behind our movements, we're going to use our breath, and so that's what's really going to get into the muscles and get the burn and get us the results that we want, versus trying to lift weights that are too heavy for us and are going to ultimately hurt us. So you might want to go up to 8 pounds if you've had a pretty strenuous strength training regimen before. That is typically what I reach for, but if you're new, you might even want to go down to 3 pounds. We're going to be doing a lot of high repetitions, so you're definitely going to feel the burn of those 3-pound weights. And there's even exercises that you're going to see me drop down. So long story short, I'd rather you start with lighter weights than heavier weights that you're going to have a hard time maintaining the exercises, keeping up, and you won't even build your endurance that way. The third thing that we will use a fair amount, these are gliding discs. You can purchase these, you can actually purchase any of this at Amazon, you can purchase it at your local store. Again, none of it's super expensive, but these we'll be using for some arm and some core stuff, and we'll actually do some leg stuff with these as well. So these have 2 sides. The yellow side is going to be for carpeted surfaces, and the black side's little hole is going to be for hardwood. If you don't want to purchase these, you can use paper plate. If you're on carpet, you can use a hand towel. If you are on tile, you can even use socks if you're on tile. Many ways to get around it. It's just a handy little tool to have. These are not the ones that I typically use. I typically use the Yoga Body ones, and Yoga Body doesn't support me in any way. I just purchased their stuff. They're made out of bamboo. They're really high quality. I just don't happen to have them with me today. And I typically keep them in my car, in my bag at all times, so that whenever I'm in a pinch to do a quick workout, I usually have all these things that you see here, so I can just get it out and get going. But again, I do this most all day, every day, so it's not something I expect you to do or to have. So that should get us started as far as equipment goes. What I wanted to do next is go over a couple of exercises that we'll be doing frequently in different variations, and go over some modifications and advancements, as well as just make sure we're all on the same page as far as our form goes. So we're going to do just a couple of basic exercises today. All of these will come together into some more, flashy exercises that we'll do along the road, and I just want to make sure we have a solid foundation here. So exercise number 1 is the foundation for other exercises and something that we'll do over and over and over again, and that is a plank. So let's talk about our plank. First, I'm going to show you some things that I see common that are, I hate to use the word wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and use it here and say it's wrong. And most importantly, rather than trying to tell you how to do things a certain way, I want to make sure that you're safe. I also don't want you to be wasting your time. You're not really going to waste your time as long as you're moving your body and doing something good for it, but we can maximize our time and our effort by doing things a certain way, and that's all what we want. No one wants to spend hours and hours working out to achieve something that they could have done if they just did it a different way in 20 minutes. So, plank. We are going to go into, I want you to think of a mountain pose or Tadasana in all these exercises today. So we're going to go into that pose on our hands and our feet. So we're going to start by grounding our hands into the mat. Fingertips are spread nice and wide. Let me get these weights out of your way so that you can see. Fingertips are nice and wide. I'm going to make sure that my wrists are underneath my shoulders, so not back here and not up here. Why? Because that creates instability in the joint, and it's not going to hurt me today. It's probably not going to hurt me tomorrow, but long term it's not great. And also it's going to cause me to have wrist pain and make my wrist sore, and that's not something that we want when we're trying to build a consistent strength training regimen, or a yoga practice for that matter. So starting up here, we're just going to start with our whole shoulder girdle. So the second thing that I see most frequently is this. People will have beautiful planks in the lower part of their body, but they're dumping everything into their shoulder girdle. So what's happening here? Right here, my fingertips, they aren't doing anything. I feel a lot of pressure in my wrists. I also feel a lot of pressure in my shoulder blades that I shouldn't feel. So when people are dealing with wrist pain and shoulder pain in movements like this, which translate into push-ups and things of that nature, the first thing that I look at is if these fingertips are just relaxed down on the floor. If they're not active and pushing the floor away, then there's where I start. So when I press the floor away, I take the mound or the knuckle of that index finger, I press it down, and then I feel it come all the way up here. So two things are happening there. The first thing is I'm activating those muscles, so I'm actually using more muscles than I am when I'm just here. The more muscles that you use, the more calories you will burn. So if you're in this for weight loss, which is a perfectly fine reason to be doing this, then you're going to want to use as many muscles as you can. The second thing that's happening is that by activating these muscles, I'm allowing myself to hug these muscles in to support this bone, to support this joint, and so on and so forth, so that my body is safer in doing these exercises. Does it burn more? Is it going to make me sweat more? It sure is, but it's okay to sweat, it's okay to burn. That's kind of what we're here for. So rather than hold a 5-minute plank where I'm nice and soft and limp and probably hurting my joints, let's do a firm plank, and maybe we can only hold that for 10 seconds. So coming here, arms are nice and strong. So we're going to do a half plank to start. So there are perfectly legitimate ways to modify a plank, and that would be to come into a half plank. So for a half plank, my knees aren't going to be underneath my hips because I need to fire up this midsection here. So I'm going to walk them back. But now when I walk them back, I don't want to come back with them. I want to keep my chest forward, adjust those hands, they're underneath the shoulders. And then I'm going to lift the belly button up away from the floor. So now, here, this isn't a half plank. I'm dumping everything in the midsection, so I'm still actively pressing here, lifting up with my belly button. And so now my low back is secure. My abs are on fire, even though my knees are down, and my arms are burning. So I definitely have some muscles working here. So from here, I want to pull my belly button away from my waistband and my sternum away from my belly button. So what's happening here is I'm creating space in my spine. Hugging everything up, pressing up, everything's working, my legs are just resting. So everything's a little bit closer into my core. All right, so I'm setting a really bad example, but I want to point this out because something I see a lot in yoga classes are the worst for this, is when people are in the plank, they're looking around at their neighbor, they're looking behind, they're looking out like this. So I just want to bring your awareness to the fact that your neck is an extension of your spine. So planks are really good for strengthening the low back. They can also harm your low back. So when I'm up here trying to move everything up here, then my spine can't be in a straight line. So we really want to keep everything focused so your eyes go slightly in front of your fingertips. So as you lift everything up and hug it in, we're strengthening our back, we're strengthening our core, we're strengthening everything in our body and not trying to ask it to do funny things. So long term, you're creating tension knots. I don't know if you've ever gotten them in your shoulders and your necks, but they can come from just trying to activate those muscles and not keeping everything in alignment. And you also are just not keeping your weight evenly distributed in your body, so you're going to have instabilities in your muscle development. So that was our half plank. So obviously from there, we can come into our full plank. So let's check in here. Again, we're gonna go back into that mountain pose. So I want you to imagine that all four corners of your feet are touching the floor, just as they would if you were standing at the top of the mat. So press them back without going here. All right, so we don't want to be here and we don't want to be here. Now I'm going to take my inner thighs and I'm going to spiral them in and press them up. So now my thigh muscles are hugging on to my leg bones. All right, I'm not sagging here, I'm lifting up, I'm pressing. So you notice that my shoulder blades aren't sunken in, but they're almost domed. So if I were to come by and pour a cold glass of water on your back, it should roll off to either side and not just puddle in the middle. So you can see I can just press and stay active here, not very long, and my body will start to shake. Now, last but not least, and it's actually not last, you should be doing this the whole time, is you're going to find your breath. All right, so in Vinyasa Yoga, we predominantly use the Ujjayi breath. So you can use that here. Breathing, you're going to feel the breath come and lengthen the torso, lengthen the body, and what's going to happen is it's going to activate that diaphragm and get deep into those core muscles. And the same thing as you push it out. So that's our plank. From plank, it's natural to go into a push-up. So we're going to keep all the principles of that plank, and we're just going to add a little push movement. So my clients get tired of hearing it all the time. It's a push-up, not a push-down. So even though we're pushing down and those fingertips are active, I'm going to do this on my knees. We don't want to flop down and then do this right here. All right, so we're going to get the fingertips nice and active. I'm going to control my lower. All right, power it up. Control and power. So now I'm going to go into what I see most frequently done incorrectly here. Number one is people going down too far. Now let me say, your goal here is to get your chest down to the floor, but so many people start to get halfway down here with their knees down, and they want to jump up onto their toes. All right, so step one, if your chest cannot touch the ground and you push it back up, then you should be on your knees. So this is the worst, doing this, getting back up. However, there are easy ways to prevent that. Number one is control your lower just as far as you can push back up with strength. This is how we build strength and endurance so that eventually we can get all the way down. All right, number two, I see people doing this all the time. So what's happening here? Here my body's not balanced. So remember I said that mountain pose, and yes, you can do twists and crosses in yoga and still maintain that mountain pose, that foundation, but not when we're here. So here, I'm leaning over onto this left hip. There's less weight in my right hand. So over time, I'm creating instabilities in my core and in my shoulders, which eventually, if you're doing your upper body correctly, you're not going to harm yourself, but you are going to put a little more work in on one side versus the other, and we want our body to be balanced. So, toes will point behind you. All right, so once you're comfortable here, everybody wants to pop up here. Well, let's take this a step further. So we're comfortable here, our chest goes all the way down, we can power up. So now let's lift our feet, again, we're not crossing, just lift, send it forward, lower, and up. So there, I just have a little less contact on the floor, but I can still maintain my form, my core is still working, my arms are still working, my chest is working, my shoulders are working. Everything's strong up there. I'm actually already breaking a sweat just from showing you these moves. Last but not least here, full on plank. So take your time, we're not rushing through anything, and you're gonna lower and power. Lower and power. All right? So one thing that I see a lot of is people trying to get their nose all the way down, which is great. However, it's not here. All right? So just like we talked about in the plank, getting these shoulders past, we're not doing here. Now my shoulders are doing something. I'm not even sure what's going on, but I'm really sure it's not safe. So you want to keep it up here. And so when your nose gets down to the ground, that's great, but don't take your nose first. Then we're out of alignment with our spine once again. Our shoulders are not safe. Our body's not working most efficiently, which is what we want, because let's be honest, I happen to think a lot of exercise is fun, but it's still hard. So let's do the best that we can with our bodies. Breath. So I like to use my Ujjayi breath whenever I can, whether I'm working out or doing yoga or what have you. So we can also do that in push-ups. So So let's go back into that plank position. So just like you would, you can think of some salutations with chaturangas. You're going to exhale, empty out lower, fill up, press. And so there again, I'm oxygenating my muscles. I'm allowing them to recover. I'm allowing myself to use them to their best ability. I'm using these deep core muscles. There's so many benefits just to adding breath with movement. Not only am I adding the breath with the movement to help my muscles physically, but I'm staying present in my exercise. I get a lot of questions as to why I think that people hurt themselves exercising. And that could take all day, and we're not going to get into that. But the basic answer that I can give you, and let me just say before I say this, that you could still hurt yourself doing this, is if you take breath and put intention with your movement, you're much less likely to get hurt. It's all about your intention and staying present. Not that you shouldn't go to the gym and have fun and talk to your friends or your partner or whatever, but the more present we can stay with our body and how our body's responding to what we're asking it to do, the better off that we're going to be long term. And that's just the basic answer. Most people don't like that because that generally means that they're not able to listen to their loud music, but it's just something over time. As someone that has injured herself pretty severely over time and working with clients day in and day out, I can tell a huge difference in how people respond to exercise just by being a little bit more aware of what's going on. So we're going to stand up. And you weren't going to get out of this without some squats. So let's talk about our squats. You hear a lot of people talk about the anatomy of squats being that we don't want our knees to go over our toes. That's not incorrect, but it's also not completely correct. If you look around even your house and your family, you'll notice that there's a lot of different shapes and styles of bodies that exist. And so we have to be aware of what's happening. So I want you to be aware of one thing, and that is your powerhouse, your glutes. So now you're going to go into, well, there's different types of squats. What about my quads? What about my inner thighs? There's a place for all of that, but we're talking about basic squats right now, and I want you to predominantly come here. Why? This takes pressure off your knees. It's going to help your low back. Again, I could go into a whole tirade onto the benefits of working your glutes, but it also keeps your squats really safe. So here, we're going to do a squat where your feet are going to be slightly wider than hip distance, but I do want your feet to point forward. All right? So when your feet point forward, you may have to internally rotate just slightly, not here, just a slight internal rotation so that the rest of my toes are going to point forward, and what happens is this putting my femur into my hip socket. So now I've got my hip bones, my knee bones, my ankle bones, everything feel good. Now I'm going to start to squeeze muscle in before I do anything. Now for squats, sometimes we'll use the dumbbells, sometimes we'll go here. Anytime that your hands are elevated above your heart, you're getting your heart rate up and it's got the cardio element to it. Hands to your hips, but I'm going to put my hands just at my heart center just to keep myself balanced as I lower back. So after doing a couple of these, you should feel it all the way at the backs of your legs. But one thing that you might be a little bit aware of is that you can't squat as low as you could when you were coming forward. And that's okay. So much like the push-ups, I'd rather you be aware of what's happening and the muscles that are working and what we're doing for your body than what it looks like. Also, like in yoga. So just doing these a couple of times. The same, and come together, chair squat. Back, keeping the weight in your heels, I can lift my toes. And so different kinds of squats. A sumo squat. I'm not going to break all these down because there's so many ways that we can do squats, and we will definitely get into that. But sumo squat's a big one where I see people want to stick their butt out because I just told you to stick your butt out. But here I want you to draw your tailbone in, belly button lifts in, and you're going to roll these inner thighs back. Make sure your knees are tracking with your toes so we still have that mountain pose alignment and we're not coming here or going way out. And you're going to lower and up, lower and up. A lot of things that get missed in squats, core activation. I see a lot of saggy backs in squats. Belly button draws in and up, tailbone in, whether you're sticking your butt out or you're sticking it in. Play with that for a minute, because once you start to play with that, it's going to make your squats harder. Me, it's actually really hard to do. Our bodies are naturally lazy. I'm probably not the first person that's told you that, but if I am, it's a fact. So what happens, and what I mean by that, is that our bodies will look for the easiest way to accomplish things. It's survival. We don't want to exert that much energy because we've always got survival on our mind, and if we exert that energy here, what happens if we need it later? So muscles compensate, and so we have to, and that's where the intention and the awareness comes back. We have to be really intentional about what we want to do, and so maybe noticing if I tell you to do 20 reps of something, you've only got 15 in you today, and that's fine. I'd rather have 15 solid reps where we're activating those muscles, we're staying present, we're aware, our body's working optimally, than you to power out 20 and those last 5 may have even made yourself so you don't want to exercise tomorrow. So core activation, pulling that in, relaxing your shoulders. There's never any need for our shoulders to be up here when we're squatting. Relax. And that's another way to conserve energy. We want the whole body to work as a system, and it will. However, if you can rest a body part, rest a body part. Last but not least, let's go briefly over some lunges. So there's 2 different types of lunges. Well, there's more than 2 different types. There's 2 main types of lunges, and that's forward and back. Forward are the ones that are generally the worst because we come here. Because why? Forward motion. So finding that Tadasana, I have my shoulders over my hips, hips over my knees, knees over my ankles. My core is drawn in tight. I'm going to step forward. I'm going to pause because I'm not in a race. I'm going to lean back slightly so my shoulders stay over my hips, and I'm going to lunge down, not forward. Down. Step it back. Down, step it back. So you can play with that a couple of times. This is just one of those things, just don't rush it. Just take your time, find your footing, ground into your feet, relax your shoulders, and breathe. Reverse lunge is the same thing. Step onto my mat so I don't make myself uneven. You're going to step it back, pause. We're not going to lean forward, we're not going to lean back, we're going to stack. We're going to lunge, drive into that front heel, step it forward. Back, lunge, drive into that front heel, and back. So for reverse lunges, I see a whole lot of when you're stepping forward, people digging in with their toes and lifting up. Drive with the heel. Again, getting into that glute, bringing it forward. I hope these are helpful. I hope this gets you excited about what we're about to do here on the stream. If you have any questions, shoot us a comment, shoot us an email, and I'll be happy to answer whatever I can. Namaste. I'll see you soon.